Well, you might find it a little strange to do the affirmation on income when today's topic is inner communion. But hopefully, as we go into this topic, we'll find that these two things are not so far away from each other as they seem at the first sight. Last week, we discussed the story from the Bible of two sisters, Martha and Mary. Some of you might have missed it, so let me just give a recap. So these two sisters, they are devotees of Jesus. And one day, Jesus and his close disciples visited their home. Naturally, Martha started preparing food for them. She's very busy. Mary, on the other hand, is sitting at the feet of Jesus, her guru, and absorbing his vibration. After some time, Martha finally came to Jesus and said or complained that, "Please tell Mary to help me. There are so many things to be done." However, Jesus scolded Martha. "Martha, Martha, you're troubled about many things. But one thing is needful, and Mary has chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her." The seva that Martha was doing, cooking and serving everyone, is not wrong by itself. But Jesus was talking about her, Martha's inner consciousness, her attitude in her mind. Do your seva with the right attitude, not with restless preoccupation, but with deep, peaceful absorption in God. That's what Jesus was trying to remind Martha. See God in every action. Interestingly, the Bible doesn't say what happened after this conversation. And Swami Kriyananda even speculates that it might be, we can imagine very well, that Jesus told Mary to help Martha. Because in other stories in the Bible, we see Jesus being very considerate to people's needs. So, it's not about superficial contrast of what you do, but what is inside in your consciousness. But anyhow, how do we develop and maintain that inner consciousness that Jesus was pointing out, that consciousness, what attitude that is firmly centered in God, in God? And the answer is, well, we can guess from the topic of today, inner communion or meditation. That is to say, to set aside some time that is dedicated for inner communion with God. Not just trying to do it while you are doing some other activity. In the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, Swami Kriyananda says, outward spiritual acts have two major disadvantages. One, these acts, even though they are meant as self-offering, they act only indirectly on the energy in our spine. Therefore, it's less effective in the only spiritual work that really counts, self-transformation. That is about transcending our ego, about transcending our karma. Yoganandaji said Kriya Yoga is the airplane route to God. It accelerates our spiritual growth because it works directly on the energy in the spine. removes the seeds of karma that are stored in the chakras along that energy spine. Now, the second disadvantage, Swamiji said, is that these outward acts, they involve our minds outwardly and keeping it restless and causing one to forget easily such spiritual essentials as deep devotion in our heart. And that's what exactly happening to Martha in that story. The Gita says, the inner spiritual fire ceremony of raising awareness is superior to any outward act of self-offering. The inner spiritual fire ceremony, that is our meditation. Swami Kriyananda said, meditation is necessary for most people as a means to centering themselves in the self with the capital S. The self, the soul, is made of God, of Satchit Anand. And it's where we find lasting joy, peace, and unconditional love. And as today's affirmation said, God is our wealth, our treasure, our security. And when we are centered in that true self, we get connected to that source, God. And we are able to draw His energy, her energy, that is infinite. And that is why there's no limit. Whatever whatever income you need will be ever yours. Swami Kriyananda also said, the more we are calm and at rest in our own center, the more we succeed at anything we attempt. But being at our own center is difficult to do if we are busy doing activities. To act in the world, inevitably we have to turn our senses outward to engage with people, with the world. And as a result, we often, if not always, react to the situation, and our emotions, our feelings got steered, and so forth. To stay calm and centered, we have to practice every day. We have to develop that habit of meditation and practice that centering of ourselves during meditation. Someone asked Buddha, what have you gained through meditation? He said, nothing. However, he said, let me tell you what I lost. Anger, anxiety, depression, insecurity, fear of old age and death. In meditation, we release these harmful emotions, likes and dislikes, attachments, or self-definitions that limit us to express our highest potential. When you're busy, you're tempted to say or tempted to skip your daily meditation. It seems a good idea. I'll meditate tomorrow. I will start my regular meditation next week, next month, when my busy schedule or busy phase of my life is over. But the truth is, because you are busy, you need to meditate. Yogananda ji said, no matter how much the organization keeps me busy, I never forego my daily appointment with God. Faithfully, I practice Kriya Yoga and meditate. Yogananda ji was a God realized master. He's an avatar. He doesn't have to meditate. He's already one with God. But he left these words so that we follow his example. He also said, if you read 1 hour, then write 2 hours, think 3 hours, and meditate all the time. How often do we do the opposite? Based on Yogananda's teachings, Swami Kriyananda developed a set of Hatha Yoga postures, or the system, we call it Ananda Yoga. And there are many schools of yoga out there, and some of them follow, they practice asanas in a continuous flow, right? If it's 1 hour, they keep moving throughout, no pause between the asanas. And many people like it, and I also used to like it, because it makes you feel that you're doing something, you're doing a lot of things, and that gives you satisfaction. But what about peace of mind? What about that centeredness in God? In Ananda Yoga, we always pause after each asana. If it has left side and right side, you do left side, come back to center, take a moment, do the right side, then come back to the center. That gives us a hint how we can go about our activities. After every action, we can come back to our center, and that can be a little meditation. It's different from proper meditation, but still, take a few breaths back to the center. Then, from that center, again, go out to the next action. I'll end once again with the same quote that I used earlier, that what Swamiji said: the more we are calm and at rest in our center, the more we succeed at anything we attempt. I hope this will give you, all of us, the motivation, and daily meditation will make it possible. Jai Guru.
This reading, Swamiji wrote readings for every week for satsang topics, and he narrates the story of Martha and Mary there. And Yogananda ji says that, often we think about Martha and Mary representing two different approaches to the spiritual path. One is service, one is meditation and devotion. And however, Yogananda ji says that everyone should be able to play the roles of Martha and Mary alternately in order to reach perfection. Any truth seeker, whether living in a family or a hermitage, should be able to express the dual nature of Martha and Mary, doing material duties with the thought of God, or doing the spiritual duty of meditating on God alone without being distracted by material duties as the situation called for. Right? So it's easy for all of us to go to the extremes. It's easy to just keep on meditating and not having to think about work at all, or it's easy to keep working and just forget God, right? But if we want to make spiritual progress, we want to come to the middle, to the center, as Chika was saying, because that is where we are going to make true spiritual progress. Now, a certain man once told Swami Kriyananda ji that, my life really begins when I enter my meditation room. And he thought that, maybe he's trying to impress Swami Kriyananda, or he's just saying how much his meditation means to him. And it seems like a very sincere comment. But Swami Kriyananda ji said, what a wasted life that is. Because he said, apart from your meditation time of 1, 2, maybe 3 hours, what are you doing the rest of your life? Are you not making spiritual progress when you are working, when you are at the office, when you are with your family? So we need to spiritualize each and every moment of our life. Now, the problem is that we get too busy, and it's very easy to forget God, right? There is a Zen saying that Chika was quoting the Buddha, so I sort of remembered that. It says that if ordinarily you should meditate for 30 minutes, but if you are very busy and you really don't have time, then you should meditate for 2 hours. So, the more busy we get, the harder of an effort we need to make to try to bring God into our daily activities. And if we think we are busy, let's look at some examples of busy saints. One example is Yogananda ji's most advanced disciple, Rajarsi Janakananda. At those times, in 1920s, 1930s, he was a millionaire, which means a billionaire by today's standards. He owned multiple companies. He was on the board of many different organizations. And yet, he never let his meditation go. And towards the end of his life, he achieved Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and he attained final freedom. And how did he do that? He also had a nagging wife. And his wife was so much opposed to his spiritual practice that she would get mad even if he mentioned the name of Paramhansa Yogananda. So he kept Yogananda ji a secret at home. He never told his wife, and he would steal away from home, sometimes meditate in the car. Sometimes he would come to his office and tell his secretary, "Tell everyone I'm in conference until 10 a.m." And then he would sit in his office and then he would meditate. Then with his brother disciples, he would joke, I didn't tell them I was in conference with God. And his brother disciples, they used to ask him, how are you able to stay calm? You are so busy. You are materially successful and you are making such rapid spiritual progress. And one time they asked him, how do you make business decisions? And he said, when everyone is sitting in the meeting, they are talking, they are discussing different things, I'm silently doing Hong Saw. And when everyone is done speaking, I just know the answer because God tells me what is the right decision to make. Right? So here is an example of how we can alternatively play the roles of Martha and Mary. Let's take another example. Let's go a little bit further back in time. This is about Ram Prasad. He was a mystical poet and devotee of Divine Mother, and he lived in the 18th century. So at that time, he was an accounting clerk, and he would do his normal office job, but his mind was so fixed on Divine Mother that he would keep forgetting his work and keep going back to God. The opposite problem that most of us have. So behind his ledger books, he started writing poems to Divine Mother. And one day his boss came and saw the poems, and he realized what a great spiritual man he is. And he said, go home, I'll pay your salary for the rest of your life. You keep composing songs. So that's not a way to, get away from your job. But the point is, that he was so much in love with Divine Mother that he was bringing that consciousness into everything that he did. And his poems are very interesting. And if anyone has studied accounts, you'll find it very interesting. So I couldn't help myself but share a little bit. So one of his poems is, O my forgetful mind, you know not how to keep accounts. When you were born, you were credited and began to be debited. Enter receipts and expenses into the book of life. If they are equal, there is no cash balance. If there is a cash balance, you will be accountable for it. What is the use of writing credit and debit? Meditate on Divine Mother. So he's basically talking about mystical teachings. He's saying your credit is your good karma, your debit is your bad karma. If there is a balance, you have to reincarnate again. If there is no balance, then you are free. And then he says, what's the use of good karma, bad karma? Meditate on Divine Mother. And let's just focus on that. Just one more, let me indulge. He wrote another poem and he said, when I seek my divine heritage, I meet with excuses and delays. I have a deed of gift that I hold in my heart, and that deed is attested by your husband Shiva. He's talking to Divine Mother. And then he says, I shall sue thee for these delays if I must, and with a single point I shall win. And if you oppose me, you will learn what sort of a mother's son I am. So that's a beautiful relationship with Divine Mother. And even though he is busy doing his duties, his heart is, fixed on God. And we see all these examples, but it's important to now make these examples very practical in our life, right? So how can we do that? About 10 years ago, Nayaswami Devarshi wrote a blog, which I really refer to time and time again. He said, make devotion a habit. Make devotion a habit. What does he mean by that? He said that all of us, all the time, every Sunday, every reading we do, we hear devotion, importance of devotion, love for God, divine love. But if it's just a concept in our minds, then we won't be able to make it practical. So he said, why don't you try to make it a habit? So you pick certain days in your life, in your routine, and you try to remember God at that time. For example, before you get into your car, you can offer a silent prayer instead of rushing to the office. Before you open your laptop or monitor to begin work, you can pray briefly. You can pray before you eat your meals. You can recenter yourself when you come back home. One thing that I use personally is whenever I walk, I do a japa, which Yogananda ji recommended. He said to always keep repeating Om Guru, Om Guru, which we were chanting this morning. And so when I walk, it has become such a habit that it's almost subconscious, but it's Om Guru, Om Guru, Om Guru. Whenever I walk, that mantra is going in my mind because I have trained myself to do that. So now it has become a habit. Devotion literally can become a habit. And not just a mindless habit, but a habit with feeling. So when we say Om Guru, Yogananda ji said Om Guru means it's a prayer to the Guru to introduce you to Om. So when you are saying Om Guru, you really feel that you are calling to the Guru and asking him to introduce you to the Om vibration. So that is one way. And I had many fascinating experiences with just this one japa. I remember that one of the ways I tried to make this a habit was when I went to sleep, I wanted this japa to be the last thought of my day. So I thought, okay, even if during the day I'm forgetful and I get very distracted or busy, at least before I go to sleep, I can do this practice. So I would go to sleep, and in the morning, many times I would wake up with this japa already going in my mind, which was so beautiful. But I had a couple of experiences which were really fascinating for me. I had 2 dreams, and in both those dreams, they were really scary, dark, nightmarish type of dreams. So I don't want to scare you, but I really felt that I was like fighting some demons on the astral plane or something. Like it was really serious for me. Of course, when you wake up, it ceases to be a reality and you're all fine. But the most interesting thing was that in those dreams, the way I was fighting those demons was Om Guru, Om Guru, Om Guru. So even in my dream, the mantra kept repeating itself. And I just wondered, I was so fascinated that a simple practice is etched into the subconscious mind so deeply. We have so many bad habits from God knows how many lifetimes. Let's try to create some good habits in the subconscious mind. And if we plant these little seeds of devotion, little habits during the day, you will find that the difference between activity and inner communion, it just goes away. The saints are not thinking, now it's my time to meditate, now it's my time to work. They are always thinking of God. There is no stopping of the thought of God for the saints. So if you want to become like the saints, then we should have that singular focus. And then all these differences, as Chika was saying, the superficial differences tend to fall away because in your heart, you are always in love with God. And even in the smallest things, you will find that just God helps you. And it's not something that I'm saying from the books. I had to take my own time to experiment with these things. But just last week, I'll share a small story. So one of the devotees came and they were asking me for some advice on something. And they asked me to overcome a certain tendency. I had no idea how to do that. I had not had the same problem in my life. So it's not like I could offer a personal solution. And as she was speaking, I was listening and I was praying to Divine Mother, please give me a solution. I don't know what to tell her. I have no idea how she can solve this problem in her life. And when she was done speaking, I had no solution. Nothing, no divine guidance came, unfortunately. And I said, I'm not sure, but if you keep meditating, you'll be able to overcome this problem. So that's the best I could offer. But just a moment later, I don't know from where, but this, the solution started coming. Oh, you can, wait a minute, just practice this affirmation, or go to that book, Swamiji writes this, why don't you read that and implement in your life? I had no idea that these things were in my mind at all. And I was so surprised that, these things keep coming if we ask God for His help, Divine Mother for her help. And it never ceases to fascinate me how much God is really present in our life if we develop that love and devotion towards Him and call to Him sincerely. So let's all end with this prayer from Whispers from Eternity. It's one of my favorite prayers. If you want, you can close your eyes and silently pray as I repeat this. This is demand for fervor in divine love. Teach me, O Spirit, to love Thee as wholeheartedly as the miser loves money. Make me as attached to Thee as the drunkard is addicted to wine. Teach me to cling to Thee as erring ones do to their bad habits. Teach me to be as attentive to Thee as a mother is to her child. Teach me to perform my duties diligently with my attention fully riveted on Thee. Teach me to love Thee as the worldly man loves his possessions. With the first love of true lovers, teach me to love Thee.